I think everyone watched very carefully as the Arab Spring offered a dramatic example of just what the power of social media can be in terms of driving political change. We know about the social change, but what about the political side? But this is an area, social media, that's still in, certainly in relative infancy, and things are changing all the time as we see companies come and get purchased for billions of dollars and change the way we behave, and they have amazing impact on our young people and the folks who are really going to be the future. And everyone's interested in this. All of our major corporations here are tremendously interested in how to market through the social media, but so are small companies, so are grassroots organizations, civic organizations. Anyone who's interested in being able to reach out to the public and have influence has to be involved, engaged, and succeed at managing the social media, again, which is still in its early stages. So a few weeks ago, there was an article that appeared in the San Francisco Chronicle that I read, and it was about Ron Conway. Now, we all know Ron Conway. This city wouldn't be doing what it's doing, frankly, if it hadn't been for Ron and the impact that he's had. He really led the charge with Mayor Lee to ensure that Twitter, as it started growing, stayed in San Francisco and established the mid-market as a destination, and with companies now popping up all over the place. And many, many other companies are here and growing in San Francisco that might be somewhere else, certainly growing somewhere else, if it wasn't for Ron's hand in making sure that we get to keep, nurture, and grow those companies that actually start up right here in San Francisco, and by extension, in the Bay Area. Well, this article talked about gun safety, and Ron was angered. It's another word, but I can't use it in this company. So he was angered by what happened in the United States Senate, which after all that happened in New England at that school on that day, rejected a major opportunity to do something significant to create an environment of gun safety in this country. And so what he said in this article I found very alluring and interesting. He said, we're going to go after, in effect, paraphrasing, those senators. We're going to change the makeup of the Senate, and everybody who voted no on that bill is going to pay a price. Well, that's different. When I grew up, still doing it, but so far, once you're a U.S. Senator, you pretty much got to stay one until you were ready to retire, and it could be a long time from now. The idea that you could actually remove a sitting senator because of some political strategy seemed a far-out thought. Well, Ron doesn't think so. And so I thought, well, this would be really interesting to hear from him and people he associates with as to how they just might do that. So that's what this panel is about. So I'd like you to welcome Ron and a few folks who are going to have a conversation that I think is going to become the next important conversation about the future of politics here in the Bay Area, in our state, and in our country. So let me introduce Ron Conway, who is the senior advisor for SV Angel. With him is MC Hammer. You all know MC Hammer is a very, very famous musician and an entrepreneur. I met him about 15 years ago or so at a Giants game in the suite, and 15 years ago he was talking to me about lining the oceans with cable to enable the future digital age. And I said, what you talking about, MC? I think he may have known something. Hunter Walk is the co-founder of Homebrew and former director of product management for Google. Welcome, Hunter Walk. And today, we're fortunate to have as the moderator for our discussion Michael Arrington. He's an entrepreneur, he's a blogger, and he's the founder of TechCrunch. Gentlemen, the stage is yours. Let's have an interesting dialogue.
So my understanding is this audience is high-powered CEO types. Is that correct? If you're a high-powered CEO type, raise your hand. And who else is in the crowd? Is it less high-powered CEOs? So we're going to, because we're going to talk about social media and politics, but I think that I want to expand the conversation a little bit in two ways. One is I want to talk about politics in general, because we have two people up here who are going to become politicians someday. And then I'd also like to talk about social media more in general than just specifically politics and how it can change the world, I guess, in political ways, if you guys are okay with that. Ron is the special knowledge of all these guys on stage, and I'll just start with Ron at the end. Ron has invested in and advised every single social media company that matters, and every single social media company that you've now forgotten about because it's gone out of business. So he knows everyone in the space, and they truly do look to him for advice. Hunter Walk was the head of product at YouTube. He recently left, although he was there through all the big growth years, and now he has his own venture fund, which is a publicly known thing, but now it is. And so he'll be investing in startups. Hammer, there was that music thing in the 90s, but also
And dancing.
the music and the dancing, and you claimed backstage that you invented the designated hitter rule, or that, no, that your friend invented anyway, we worked on that. But so sometimes you tell tall tales, but what is true is that you have very effectively leveraged social media in the last several years when it's been leverageable to do interesting things. And then I'm the guy that's asking the questions. So I think there'll be some really good things to start off with. Let's go right to Hunter, and we'll probably talk about these things, but talk about some of the things that you saw at YouTube. Yeah. That YouTube is itself a social platform, but also social platforms amplify what YouTube does. And some of the things that you saw with the Arab Spring and lots of other things, and the key examples of it affecting political issues.
Yeah, so I mean, YouTube now gets over 100 hours of video uploaded every minute. And so started out, I think, in people's consciousness as an entertainment destination. That's where I go to watch cat videos. That's where I go to watch music videos. But nobody ever goes and buys a cell phone to say, I'm going to buy this because, yeah, there's some great police brutality that I need to record. I mean, people buy smartphones because they want to email their friends, they want to take pictures, they want to do everyday fun, enjoyable activities. But then all of a sudden, when you find yourself in a situation to use technology, to use social media to help broadcast something, you have the tool available. And so YouTube basically became the place that not just sort of the entertaining stuff, but some really important conversations started taking place. And I think we saw that just a few years ago with the Arab Spring, where events that might have otherwise been undercovered or maybe not covered at all were told from a very much a first-person perspective. And the consciousness, because YouTube is really sort of the first global media platform, it's no longer just about, well, maybe this story will only be heard in the local newspaper and it won't spread. I mean, mayor smoking crack in Toronto becomes social media news because there's no such thing as a regional publication anymore. YouTube's a global living room.
Would we have had the Arab Spring, the sort of the replacement of secular dictators with religious dictators? Could that have happened without YouTube and the other social platforms?
I think social platforms tend to amplify, not cause the initial spark. So there's something that happens, and then
that spark though could die out without that amplification.
I think so.
Do you believe it would have, or do you believe that we would have?
I don't know about any one given issue. I don't. In that you sort of different people will talk about what happened. Was it sort of the self-immolation of a fruit salesman in Tunisia? Was it something else? But I think it gave everybody not just a way to watch. What's important is to realize that social media is not just about, oh, now I can more easily and more cheaply reach a wider audience, because that audience has the expectation of responding. That audience has the expectation of adding their voice to the conversation. And I think that's something that social media brings to politics that's different than just a louder, larger bullhorn.
What are, Hammer, what are some of the things that you've seen social media used for political change?
Well, first of all, I want to challenge your trade.
Designated hitter?
No, the trade of dictatorships. From a religious to a...
from secular to religious dictators. That's a given fact. That's not something.
Well, I know, but if we had more time, we would actually debate that the way we debate.
Right, but let's just agree for now on that.
Okay, we'll agree from now. Yeah, we'll just agree from now. But Jim spoke of 15 years ago we met, and I was telling him about cables underneath the ocean that would carry information, fiber, which was Global Crossing, by the way, and Williams. So two of the earlier carriers who were going to lay the fiber underneath the ocean, right? Hunter, being YouTube, I was at YouTube.
Well, wait. What did he say? What did he say? What did he say? Did he say that's crazy talk?
He believed me. He wasn't like you when I just told you that I'm getting ready to revolutionize electricity.
I thought you were going to say like he didn't believe me and I was right. Okay.
No, he believed me. You didn't. So with Hunter and YouTube video, I was at YouTube when they had about 4 computers on top of a pizza parlor in right there in Redwood City, San Mateo. in between being at Google, meeting with Jennifer Feiken, who was the head of Google Video at the time, trying to convince them that they should combine Orchid and Google Video together to create YouTube. So they just bought it. But the idea was all of this was leading to where we are today, right? That how can, as individuals and as a community, we take control of messaging,
Right.
or get our voices into the conversation, because everything was being controlled by agendas, individuals. They painted the pictures, and being an entrepreneur and a A-type personality, I wanted to get involved and be able to control my own imaging and conversation. So cut to today. Governor Brown, who will be here at some point, is a perfect example of us utilizing these tools to drive change and political change. In particular, I think it was Prop 30, correct me if I'm wrong, but I was at UC Merced, which I happen to be on the Board of Trustees there, and the students said, we got a big problem. Literally, we were having a conversation like this, and I said, what's the problem? They're going to cut funds to California universities, tuitions are going to go up, we're in trouble. And I said, you're not in trouble, you're just not organized. Why don't you get every college in California to jump online and get behind a proposition that will stop your school from getting the funding cut?
Right.
And we sparked it right there that day, and within 12 days, 10 days, when they looked at the polls, it had changed now, and it was winning. So that's the power of being able to use these platforms to affect change.
But is that, okay, and that's great, except is it not? Because, you know, if you look at like the fact that California needs to have budget cuts and needed to get their fiscal house in order, what you did was, you know, you prompted a sort of popular uprising of your own, a tyranny of the masses, if you will, to say, not us. Let someone else like have budget cuts, but not us. Well, how is that a good thing?
It's a different. That's a different conversation, and they're only going to allow us in about 15 minutes here. We down at, well, we got about 30. But that's a different conversation, a different argument. What we were really saying was that we're taking control of our destiny. These college students saying, you're not going to close the doors on our school and force us out right now, and all we have to do is
take it away
vote.
from that other school. So the point is, we can argue whether it was a good or evil act, but the point was that it was effective, is
And
what
we
you're
have
saying.
a surplus in the budget in California now, yes.
Yeah, okay. Ron, what are some of the ways you're using social media to conduct evil in the world? I'm kidding. Some of the ways that you're using social media.
Well, the latest example locally would be what we did for Prop E in San Francisco.
And what is Prop E?
The Prop E was about switching the payroll tax, which is very onerous for startup companies or even small businesses, switching the payroll tax to a gross receipts tax, so that businesses pay the tax when they have revenue. And this had been an issue in San Francisco forever, but we were able to, last November, pass Prop E, and now San Francisco will convert over the next couple of years to a gross receipts tax. The tech community obviously got behind this. SF City, the group that I helped form a year and a half ago, endorsed Prop E and mobilized the tech community. How did we mobilize the tech community? We did it through social media. We launched the effort a few months before election with a very humorous viral video that had Jack Dorsey in it. It had some of the icons in the tech industry in San Francisco. It had Jack Dorsey opened the video, and then Brian Chesky from Airbnb was one of the people. It was kind of a sitcom, but very humorous, but got the message across that the tech community had to get involved in civic affairs. And at the end of the video, it asked you to go to the website, which then asked you to be a proponent for Prop E. And if you're a proponent for Prop E, then hey, why don't you get the message out about you're in favor of Prop E by tweeting about it, putting it on your Facebook profile, and tracking the people that agree with you. And then we use some software from Votizen, which is now part of Causes, that actually implements what we call a virtual precinct walk. And so what you do is you track the people that agree with your position, and then as it gets close to election, we scrape the voter files for who's voted and who hasn't, and we remind the people who we want to vote yes on Prop E that they haven't voted yet, and please go out and vote. This is all done on the web. In the old days, this was all done by walking precincts.
And it all worked.
And
You got
it all worked.
Prop E to switch taxes from one thing to another.
Correct, which
Yeah.
is a legacy gift to
Now,
San
you're in
Francisco.
these companies you're talking, Vote is in, I think you said Causes, you're investing in all these companies, is that right?
Of course.
And then you're also using them to create I don't want to use a charge term, but like a political machine to get everything that you want done behind the scenes done. Would that be a
Well,
fair
this
way
is software. This is software that is available
for anyone to create
to,
their own
to
political
anyone
machine?
to use, but you need to use these tools in order to activate around an issue.
Now, you have, and I want to get back to this in your political aspirations, but you have talked about a very high-tech, heavy way of doing amazing things, of organizing people and calls to action. What Hammer did with moving the funding from whatever children who are hungry to getting it back to the university, it was almost like it wasn't nearly as complicated. You said get these students who care about this to express themselves on Twitter, Facebook, et cetera.
Right.
And that worked just through force of will as well. Is that right?
Well, it was mainly to again, not just gripe and complain, but they had the power
Yeah.
among themselves if they just mobilized to control their destiny.
But in the 60s, students had the power too. They just got up and walked, right, and protested. Is this sort of the lazy man's,
That's good. No, this is this is.
Like, I almost care enough to write a sign and hold it up, and I'm going to tweet, but it still works.
Yeah,
But this has identity. This is very different.
yeah, it's very different.
In a protest march, the legislators watching it on TV have no idea who those people are.
So it's more
They have no
effective.
idea if they
Yeah.
are their constituents. In a virtual protest, the legislators know that one of their constituents who voted for them is protesting
they take it more
and is
seriously.
upset.
I think what Mike's referring to, though, is important, that the digital enhances but does not fully replace the offline work that still needs to occur in order to sometimes get real change instituted, right? So, but even there, technology works. There's sort of, I don't know if you'd call it social media, but there's sites like Meetup that help people engage offline
Yeah.
around topics, interests, some of them political, some of them more casual. So I really look at it as sort of a funnel. And social media definitely expands the top of the funnel. People who might not even know about something, being able to hear about it and take a lightweight action. But at the end of the day, if you're really going to drive political change, you still need people at the bottom of the funnel, the people who are willing to get up and leave the house to go do something in order to continue to add energy to that process.
Yeah, that's a great point, that social media is part of the campaign. It's not the whole campaign.
Well, in his case, it was a whole campaign.
In
Tweet, then they got the money back.
Well, a call to action. There was a call to action: tweet, vote, and then get the money back. So we had to get them to understand it's very important that they vote. And so there was
Okay.
a call to action in
All right.
between. There was the equivalent of a march to the voting booth.
Got it.
And if you look at SOPA PIPA, I'm assuming everyone knows what SOPA PIPA is. It was
I wouldn't assume
it was
that.
a piece of legislation that the tech community was opposed to, and the tech community mobilized around this issue, and even one day shut down many websites on the internet, to get the attention of Congress, which they did. But at the same time, we had physical protests,
Right up there.
and I stood on a fruit crate in front of City Hall, and
Did you have one of those like megaphones?
yes, yeah, literally.
And you're like, stop, SOPA, stop. Yeah.
I surprised myself.
T-shirts with Ron's
T-shirts.
image.
But it ended up, we call that online and offline.
Did you get arrested? Did the police come and
do
arrest
the
you?
offline as well. No, Greg Sir gave me a chit.
See, I have a little bit, obviously I have a little bit of an attitude problem up here because to some extent, and I've been seeing this stuff for years now, to some extent I think it's all bullshit, right? I think it's all sort of letting the baby have his tantrum, and to some extent. And your example was the one But to some extent, like nobody knows what SOPA PIPA is, and now that they killed it because they yelled loud enough, all the laws are subsequently sort of
But
back
if
on the
you-
books, and no one pays attention.
But if you can get the legislators' attention, so
For 5
be it.
minutes.
I think fatigue, though, is an interesting
Yeah,
issue, right?
fatigue.
So there's,
He
to
keeps saying
just
what I
take
want to say
people,
better than I would.
to take
yeah.
people just through cycles of outrage, I
Yes.
think is exhausting and ultimately, might not have the same. So I think of social media, for example, it's not about just the campaign, it's about leadership. It's about keeping people involved and active, through the, emergencies. And that, that is still a challenge because that comes down to, people, not technology, right? And so what we've tried to do is, in some of, we see on YouTube, what happens is communities of interests will form. And you got to think of these as sort of being able to expand and contract as needed. And so, at the end of the day, you still need that core group of people who are going to be interested in something beyond the retweet and really understand and analyze the issue in order to cause change.
What was at the root of SOPA and PIPA? It was Hollywood in many respects versus technology.
It was like evil musicians trying to retain rights to not let the people have freedom to listen and to content. That was sort of the root of it.
Yeah, that's very good. It's about content creators wanting to be sure that
They got a lot of money.
on one hand,
That they get paid. Yeah.
no, that was well, no, it's a difference. So there are content creators who are okay, and then you have the industry that wanted to go overboard that would actually step on your rights to be able to share content. So
Which you would call steal content.
steal content.
Yeah.
Share without compensation.
Or stealing.
So a lot of ways we could say it. But
So the students who wanted free tuition, that's fine. The people who wanted free music, they're sharing without compensation.
there was not free tuition, it was subsidized tuition. But we should talk about also, when we talk political, because beyond political, the effects of policy, we should talk about how great things like meeting with Senator Kane and Senator, some of the senators we just met with,
and
Schumer, and we just met with like 5 senators in D.C. a couple of weeks ago around Sandy Hook. Again, messaging first, create the dialogue, the messaging, the awareness, and then it led to physical meetings. And these meetings happen because they know that the dialogue is going to be surrounded, it's going to be on smartphones, platforms where people can address these issues. This is all about social platforms and social media.
I know you guys don't like this, but you keep going back to, you guys are so engaged, and I actually know you have for a long time, Ron less so, but like so engaged in all these political issues so far. And I'm not saying that, Ron, you haven't always been engaged in doing good things for the city, but it's like grown to an intensity where like you must be preparing for a run for mayor. And you've denied this, although, like I said, in
Of what
private,
city?
you've
San
told me.
Francisco has a mayor.
And you could become mayor of Oakland anytime you want. And are you guys going to be mayors at the same time? Have you coordinated? No. And how are you going to use social media to
We're going to have
do
the
that?
SFO slate.
Are you denying again that you are going to run for mayor?
I think San Francisco is run by the
See,
most
that wasn't a
competent.
denial. That was not a denial. That was, are you ever going to run for mayor of San Francisco?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. No, no, no.
Okay, but that night with the 4 martinis, you told me Ed Lee's toast.
That was in New York City.
And are you ever going to be run for mayor of Oakland
No,
or any other city?
no,
Why?
I'm not.
Why? You guys could be doing more great things with that kind of political power.
Because they've made it very tough to be a mayor and be a businessman. Very tough. So
And you want to be a businessman.
absolutely.
So for
I
you,
work
it's about the
behind the
money.
scenes, get things done, execution.
Okay, Ron, it's also about the money for you?
We reduce it. We reduce it to money. Thank you, Michael. Business. All these CEOs, we're just doing business. We're not.
I didn't think about the crowd when I said that. I didn't. Yeah.
I'd rather be an advocate, thank you.
Okay. All right,
And get things done through social media.
let's go back on topic.
Do I get to run for anything?
Yeah.
Hunter, what do you want to be the mayor of?
Pass.
No. Carmel.
Are we talking Foursquare? But little social media joke. Come on.
Yeah, Foursquare.
let's talk about, let's go back to YouTube because there's some fascinating stories that just have, it's just so much of the history of the last few years has been tied to YouTube. You talked a bit about, to me before, about countries trying to stop the spread of content on YouTube, and
Yeah.
Iran, you said, did you say
We've been
something?
blocked in Iran for a while. We've been blocked in China for a while. Turkey was actually one of the longest countries to block YouTube. So not just a video, but block access to the site overall.
And what did you see when those countries that blocked YouTube, did it work for them? Like, was it an effective way of censoring information flow to the public?
Well, when Turkey blocked YouTube, we saw a spike in traffic from Germany that seemed to be watching Turkish videos. So people, people will use, different ways to, suggest their location is something other than where they are. There's lots of ways. We always think, it's like water, and so you try to sort of dam it with, your hands, but it runs around it. And what happens though, this is a really interesting, it's a terrible time to be a control freak, because it's really, really hard to sort of say this is what you get to watch and this isn't. And for example, Saudi Arabia, per capita internet user, Saudi Arabia watches 3 times as much YouTube as the US.
How much is that?
Millions and millions of videos, right?
So you said 3 times per capita. Like, how much does an average US person watch YouTube per day?
It would be 15 minutes a day.
Okay, there's 45 minutes a day in
So
Saudi
yeah,
Arabia.
so and why? One could suggest that it's because there's access to information that before was unavailable. When I went to Baghdad in 2009 and I was talking with a teenage girl, I asked her, well, why does YouTube really matter to you? I mean, you've got all this other stuff going on. She said 2 things. First, it allows me to connect with the rest of the world. And the second is it allows it to come up with my own version of the truth. And I think those statements are true about social media, whether you're 17 and in Baghdad or whether you're 40 and in San Francisco.
You also said earlier, and I don't even know if you knew I was listening, but you said that you guys at YouTube would sort of sit around and those bastards turned us off. Like, watch, we're going to turn them off. And you said you always wanted.
I always wanted to block a country. There was
just to see.
There was occasionally this was the interesting thing in countries that were more that we sort of think of as being very forward thinking. Would occasionally sort of go through these questions about. Legislation of access to content, to try to protect their citizens.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about YouTube in particular. It wasn't about anything that we could control. It was broader statements about policing the internet. And I thought the best, most effective response to that might just be to, turn off YouTube for a day in that country and let the citizens react. But
have you ever turned a country off? I mean, like, if you turn off Canada, no one would even hear them yelling, right? But
Canada, like our unique user count in Canada, like something like 110% of Canadians watch YouTube. Like, moose are pulling out their smartphones and watching videos. So, unless you want, and I know you live in Washington. So unless you want angry Canadians flooding through the border. We probably want to keep YouTube
I do not want angry Canadians. I don't know what an angry Canadian looks like, though, right? It's like, I'm very angry.
They smile. They don't smile and shake your hand.
Oh, God. All right, I'm running out of content up here, but there's something else I wanted you to talk about, the Kony 2012 video. And,
oh, yeah. So are people familiar with Kony 2012? So Kony 2012 was a half-hour video on YouTube last year about telling the story of a real true story of an African warlord. And it ended up having 100 million views. It was, of the top 10 videos on YouTube last year, it was the only one that wasn't a music video. And people want to talk about it as an example of content spreading. What I actually think it's more an interesting example of is conversation. So there were 40,000 video responses. So 40,000 people actually created videos where they were talking about sort of whether this was true or not true, good or not good, and uploaded that to YouTube. And so I sort of think it's really important, whether you're a politician or a CEO, to look at this stuff and realize it's a conversation. When you're putting stuff out there, people feel like you should be listening and you should be engaging. It doesn't mean you have to respond to everything, but really important to perceive these things as conversations, not just proclamations.
Do you see that as a big problem? Is that too many people still see it as broadcasting and that they don't realize that it is going to be a conversation whether they want it to be or not?
I think tone deafness, is definitely. I mean, it used to be. So here's what I used to do with politicians. It was around like 2007. It was before we started doing the CNN, YouTube, Republican debates. And politicians and their campaign folks would come into our office and they'd say, "We're thinking about doing a YouTube channel this year. What can you offer us?" And I'd say, "Really? Because you're actually already on YouTube." And they would turn to each other and they'd say, "What? I didn't authorize this." And I'd search for their candidate's name on YouTube and I'd show the dozens, hundreds of videos, people uploading their debate performances, uploading their news appearances, uploading their commercials, uploading opinions about them. I said, you're on YouTube already. It's just a question about whether you want to participate or not.
And then
They
they'd
usually
say,
signed
like,
up for
they'd
a
say, like,
channel
all
after
that
that.
needs to come down right now.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Which?
You,
They usually signed up for channels after that. They got on, and so I think.
but were some of them trying to be controlling? Was that the problem, or they
Oh,
all
sure,
got it right away?
Sure, people are the more powerful you are, the more you're able to. You're used to being able to control the message.
So what did Amber? You were talking about this backstage. You were talking about how Mitt Romney was like just screwed it all up with social media, and that you did. You did. I wrote it down right here. And I said, would you have voted for Mitt Romney if he had gotten social media right? And you turned the other way and started talking to someone else. So what's going on there?
No, my only point was that he didn't take control of the messaging. It wasn't about anything. The big mistake that he made was he allowed his, the image and the messaging of who he is to be controlled by a third party and not his party and
Could
his
he
inner
have,
circle.
though?
He wasn't going to win anyway.
As a middle-aged white guy, are you allowed to take control of your social media that way and do it in an effective way?
Well, in today's times, if you don't take control of the messaging in politics, you will not win.
My counter to that was, is that President Obama had Will.i.am say, I want to do this video for you in the first election with McCain. And that's hard to beat. It sort of all fell into place for Obama, but maybe it was more because of who he is, that it was an effective tool for him. I don't know what Mitt Romney could have done in social media to make it work for him.
Well, we're not saying he's going to win. What we're saying is clearly he didn't control the messaging, and it's easier to play that against you as a candidate when we can just say, hey, everything you said, here's the opposite of what you said recently or in past times, and throw that against and make it apparent. Remember, they play on the intelligence of the public. And so everybody doesn't have time to do a tremendous amount of research on what you really are about. There's only small bites, and they come quickly. And so if I'm able to say this is who you are, and you're not saying this is who I am, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
We'll shape your image. We'll say who you are, and we'll make you be the perception that we want you to be.
And you don't want to have a debate over whether that's good or bad, that it's not down to 140 character snippets. You just saying it is what it is.
Greatest thing that ever happened, 140 characters. Remember I told you that. It changed the behavior of consuming information and efficiency. 140 characters, say what you have to say, and get to the end of it quickly.
More important and less important to world culture than the designated hitter rule.
More important. But the designated hitter made baseball exciting, and the National League still needs to adopt it.
It's the equivalent of taking, it's like taking the hockey net and making it 3 times bigger so there's more, whatever you call it in hockey.
Would
Goals.
you like to see more knockouts in boxing or less? More knockouts or less?
Oh, I don't believe it.
More home runs are better.
If you'd like to see this continue,
Fireworks.
at MC Hammer on Twitter and
Or just sit in on our conversations. This is how
Who
it
thinks
always
that the
goes.
designated hitter rule is one of the worst things that ever happened in professional
Oh,
sports?
we're in the
Period.
National League. Oh, come on.
I just won a debate in 140 characters against MC Hammer. What else do you guys want to talk about? Do you want to talk about other things that have gone wrong? Because I think that'd be useful for people to hear about the train wrecks of social media. Are we out of time? Is the governor here? Is he standing right behind me?
Yes, he's here. Yeah, but he's here.
So we got to go. And it's not because the governor's here. It's because I got to go. So thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you.